There was the Greeley fan story. Oh. Yeah. Rushing off solar panels.
The only reason I really agree with you is trying to get local news.
Never realized something.
You saw, by the way, you saw Angel was in the paper, right?
We'll go through this process.
Got a whole article. Did she go to school with you guys? I wasn't sure if they transferred to school or
Adrian, you sent me an email today?
Yes, that one is from me.
Just wanna make sure.
Yes, I keep forgetting to bring it up.
You and Jason?
Group, and so I was just gonna send it to you. Don't forget it. Which is not bad, have a good holiday.
Absolutely.
Good, yes.
Yeah, only when it's playing.
It's 59.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's what.
Were they talking about not doing that? Was you have the girls thing?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's 59 and 42. Yeah, 20 seconds
Kill,
to
you
go.
expecting kill the girl.
No.
We just can't start before 7.
Yeah.
What award do you get?
Especially.
She was exactly next to the boy.
Yeah.
All right. Call to order the meeting of Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. We can have a moment of silence for all those that serve inside and outside our borders, please. All right. Will you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have roll call, please, Mary?
Mayor Adrian Sandoval,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Clark,
Here.
Harold Leggett,
Present.
Nick Ralston,
Here.
Spencer Bradnan,
Present.
Troy Blum,
Here.
Hope Morris.
Here. All right. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Audience participation. We have on the list Eagle Scout report from Mr. Jason Hansen. We come to the podium, please, Jason.
You come up on as well.
I'm here to let you know that I finished my Eagle Scout project about 3 months ago. Yeah. And I just want to thank everybody that helped me with that, all the people that came and the people who donated money and all that. In total, I raised $5,173. I didn't spend it all. I have $981.36 left. I've got a check for it here. Who should I put?
Mr. Rankin. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
What do you want us to do with that money? You raised it, what do you want to go towards the dog park ultimately? It's not just a blind check for the board to spend the, what else?
It was up.
Back into the park.
Yeah.
Okay. I put up a total of 4 sets, and only one of the posts on the stepping pods or whatever had a little problem. It moved in cement, so I had to go back and make sure it was solid and stayed there where it was. But other than that, everything went smoothly and well. So.
We've had a lot of compliments on it, Jason.
A lot of
Thank you.
compliments.
Yes.
I took my dogs out there on Sunday and try to get them to go eat that tunnel. They slip and slide in there a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you crawl through first?
I reached in there, but no, that's how you do it.
I'm just glad everybody's enjoying it.
Yes, thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, Jason, that was a great job.
And then I wanted to introduce one other, because we got another one coming up. His will be quick. He's just gonna kind of give who he is and what you're planning, so.
And I wanna do like a book box at all the parks except for Lincoln Park, where it's kinda like, you take a book and you leave a book, as an approval for it.
Fantastic.
So, and he's got some planning, that's next stage, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
So,
perfect.
you do.
Well, I look forward to seeing the plans.
And then finally, we have some kind of exciting stuff going on right now. It's been a little bit busy for me this last couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, but the troop's about to triple at least in size. So right now we have, we started with our 6 boys that we've had forever, and to be honest with you, I think they were getting sick of my voice, right? But we, of those boys, we have the 2 here that are Life Scouts and soon to be Eagle. And then we have 4 of those, they're Star Scouts, so that means they're 6 months away from being ready to start thinking about their Eagle project. Actually, less than that. Actually, they're a couple months away. For those 2 boys, we picked up 1 new boy here in town. So he's just starting right off the beginning, but then we're picking up 4 Life Scouts. So, I mean, we're gonna have 4 Scouts that are coming into the troop that are already Life Scouts. 2 or 3 more Star Scouts, which is the next rank down. 2 or 3 more Scouts right from the beginning, which is what we really need because that's the process. The job isn't really mine. My job is actually, I'm supposed to kick back and kind of, the tea and snacks and whatever they bring for the meeting. I really shouldn't do much. Really, it's supposed to be the boys leading, the boys teaching, passing on their knowledge, and we're finally going to be able to start building that process again because, like I said, they were all at the same level again, so the teaching started to go and we had to start making things up. But they have 1 project coming up. They're building a couple sandboxes for the Fort Lupton preschool. And then finally, I think they're going to get some camping done, and they're going to Klondike, which is kind of a snow caving activity at the end of this month, and a couple of other things. So starting to move. So it's starting to happen. So thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else that would like to address the board?
School night, so I would say,
Okay. Sir, will you come to the podium and say your name and address, please?
Hi, my name is John Gunstner, Gunstner Investment Company. We're the owners of 11056 Log County Road 32.5. I believe that we're going to be adjacent to a proposed nature trail that the city is considering. I know that that's been talked about in various forms for I don't even know how long. I believe the first time I ever heard about was one between Platteville and Milliken, and it's kind of, there's different shapes and sizes and stuff involved. I guess I'm here tonight to express our concerns about the nature trail. While per se we don't have a problem with that sort of thing, we are concerned about any potential developments that happen. Developments that have happened around our property have not necessarily gone very well. There's a severe negative drainage situation over the bridge that's to our immediate northwest. The residential development here on the west side of town now has a negative drainage impact on the northeast corner of our property. But together with the drainage issues, whatever, we would also be concerned about any sort of, I hate to use the word security because that sounds pretty official or whatever, but what kind of impact it would have on our property or other surrounding properties as far as trespassing on private properties, as far as hunting. I've been coming up to this farm with my grandpa back even in the 60s. I've never seen turkeys like there are on our property now. At any given time, you could probably go over there and find 20, 30, 40 turkeys. And I'm just kind of, I guess, fixating on the turkeys, not that that's the most important thing in the world. But I wonder if someone on the nature trail might decide to have a nice wild turkey dinner and how the security or general enforcement of laws would happen on immediately adjacent properties. Obviously, with the river, our perimeter of our farm is kind of nebulous, especially on the west side. The farm is delineated by Road 32.5 on the north, and by the FITCO, the Farmers Independent Ditch Company, on the east side. But anyway, I'm here tonight to share some of those concerns. Again, while we're not against any of the nature trail or anything concerned directly with that, it's concerns of how that actually gets executed and some of the peripheral impacts that it would have on surrounding properties.
Okay.
So, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, moving on. Anybody else? Alright, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Action items. Resolution 2020-01, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville reappointing the municipal judge and setting the term and compensation for service. Mr. Ring.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Per our ordinance, the Platteville municipal judge is appointed and reappointed every 2 years. Mary brought this to our attention. Our judge is Mike Stewart. He's been here 20 plus years, give or take, longer than I've been here. I sat down with him last month when he comes for the one day a month we have municipal court, and he agreed to continue as our judge if we want to have him, and asked about his compensation. He was fine with the way it is now. I like Mike. Even when I was police chief, we worked well together. I think he does a pretty good job in the cases we present in front of him, and I recommend reappointing him for the next 2 years.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I entertain a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2020-02, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville.
Spencer.
What? I'm on.
01.
Oh, I'm sorry. 01. A resolution, 2020-01, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville reappointing the municipal judge and setting the term and compensation for service as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mary.
Harold Leggett,
Aye.
Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Bradnan,
Aye.
Troy Blum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris.
Yes.
Alright, motion carried. Resolution 2020-02, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville, Colorado, designating the April 7, 2020 regular election and mail ballot election and authorizing the town clerk to appoint election judges. Mr. Rankin.
I am asking to defer to our town clerk on this one.
Mary.
Well, as you know, there is an election coming up. This resolution would just officially designate a mail ballot election as your choice of venue to process the ballots. And it allows me to appoint judges so that they don't have to come to you individually. We will need considerably more time from judges than what you have in a standard polling place election, because they can do some of the ballot processing in advance. So organizing the ballots, we'll have to do signature verification through the state database, and that will be a different process than any of the judges that we've had here are familiar with, so it will take some time and a higher amount of money, of course, to pay them.
Any questions, comments, concerns? I entertain a motion then.
I make a motion, resolution 2020-02, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville, Colorado, designating the April 7, 2020 regular election, a mail ballot election, and authorizing the town clerk to appoint election judges.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we need roll call, Mary?
Mm.
No,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, resolution 2020-02 moves on. Agreement for services, town hall parking lot, Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Sue. Well, for a lot of years, the town has used the empty parcel to the parcels, used to be 6 platted parcels along the east side, west side of town hall. When the fire department purchased the subdivision to the north, so it became ours through an agreement. Over the years, we've had complaints of how that property is. It's a mud pit when it gets moist. Usually court days. Recently we've been hosting some annual ditch board meetings, and most of the officers park their vehicles over there as well as other people. Talking to David, eventually we want to improve those parcels over there, maybe a new PD, some permanent parking, some additional parking. But in the interim, that's still a few years away. So he reached out to Matt Guide, who we know, as he worked years ago on bringing the trail in and helping develop the base of the Veteran Memorial. He's local, and asked him to provide a bid on basically doing some scraping, some new material mobilization, some compacting, graded to where it actually drains. And I don't think this would be a throwaway project, so we can use most of it in the future when we do pave. And then additionally, if you notice our entrance out here, thanks to the mailboxes to the west, that's as wide as it goes, but it's probably 90 feet wide. It's a little extreme. We like to put those 6, I call them jersey barriers, but they're just concrete barriers that United Ready Mix makes with a cap. Kind of get a little bit of decoration and get people used to what a drive will actually be. Plus, it'll keep people from driving into where people are parked, hopefully. So. This would come out of the maintenance condition fund and the streets and highways fund, so we do a little bit less of pothole patching this year, which is not extremely a big issue, but most of our streets are in decent shape. But overall, this is $15,070.65 with Matt Guide's estimate. He could probably start the next month, weather permitting, and then the additional $1440 for the concrete blocks, basically from that ready mix. David was planning on attending tonight, but he went home ill this afternoon, so, which is going around apparently.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? We need these 2 separate motions.
You're gonna approve the parking lot improvements under one motion with Matt Guide and with United Ready Mix.
Okay.
Matt Guide will be a contract, or United Ready Mix will be a purchase.
Okay.
So it would be just one motion? Okay. Move to approve an agreement for services, town hall, parking lot, Melvin Gibb Incorporated, in an amount not to exceed $15,070.65, subject to approval by legal counsel and authorize mayor to execute the same.
Second.
And the purchase of the pre-form.
We'll just purchase the blocks if you don't mind.
And move to approve purchase of 6 preformed concrete blocks and caps from United Ready Mix in the amount not to exceed $1,440. There we go.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mary.
Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Bradnan,
Aye.
Troy Plum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris,
Yes.
Harold Leggett.
Yes.
Alright. So what's next?
Technically, I could have just had David buy them, but I want the board to know the entire cost of the project, so we added that too.
That's gonna go all the way back to the storage shed back there, the long.
Not
the
quite,
sand
it'll
thing?
go back to where the public works fence is over here,
Okay.
so not quite to that distance, but
That's a pretty substantial area.
exactly.
Okay. Moving on, community center use agreement, Platteville Lions Club for bingo, Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Curtis Moore and I have been in conversation about the Lions Club doing bingo at the community center. Curtis is here tonight if he would like to address the board, but ultimately they require the license. The community center is not a licensed bingo facility, but it can be used for bingo. There's some restrictions. Going to this community use agreement, spoke to Curtis about this. Is their standard one. Yesterday I met with Jenny to redo the one for the dance class. Before meeting tonight, I met with Jonna for Zumba. I still need to speak with Rich Hansen about the Boy Scouts and karate, not the Boy Scouts, but karate. This one's a little different. It has the same 15% fee per month of their total profit, because what they make is considered profit. But with the bingo license, and Curtis sent me the email from the state bingo license authority. They cannot pay rent if it's not a licensed facility for bingo, but they can pay up to $100 per month janitorial fees. So I worded this in a way where they'll still pay the 15%, but it will not exceed $100 per month, so it doesn't interfere with the license with the state of Colorado. And bingo is once a month, is it the last Friday of each month, except Thanksgiving and
Except for Thanksgiving and Christmas, because Christmas is on the last Friday this year.
exactly. So they'll still be November, December will just be the third Friday of those 2 months. We'll play it by ear. I let Curtis store the bingo machine in the hallway right now. It's covered up. We don't have the storage down there, but I'll deal with that later in the spring with the board and David discussing some storage options down there. But essentially, that's what it comes down to. Same agreement, just with the restriction on amount he can pay. And then Curtis submitted to Janet and I a letter acknowledging that the town would not be liable for any damages to that bingo machine while it's in the community center. Under the standard agreement he's going to sign after the board approval, it also indemnifies the town of any damages. So that's all I have.
Questions, comments, concerns?
May I address the board real quick?
Yes, please come to the podium.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Curtis Mort, 723 Goodrich Court. As you know, I'm a member of the Platteville Lions Club. The main purpose of us wanting to bring the bingo back to town was there had been a lot of community chatter over the last year asking if we were ever going to do bingo again. It didn't become a reality until I got in touch with the state, and we had a certification class here at the end of November where we got certified as games managers. That certification is good for 4 years. Once that was done, we were able to apply for our license. Even though we had a license several years ago, since there had been such a large lapse in time, we had to apply as a new applicant. So anyway, through the gracious efforts of some of our local business partners and groups, along with the bingo supplier out of Inglewood, he found us a gently used bingo machine from the 1980s. And he cleaned it up and fixed it up and only charged us $200 for it, whereas a new unit would cost $1,000 or more. So that was a huge savings. The main purpose of our bingo is to benefit not only our projects, but also projects from other groups. So for the first month in January, we have chosen our beneficiary to be the Boy Scouts. The reason for that is the Boy Scouts, we are their charter organization. We helped them get going back in the 1970s. So they look to us for a lot of help. So because of that, we figured what a good way to start. Especially with the Boy Scouts growing so much in size, they're going to need the help. Also that night, the Boy Scouts will be selling concessions. They will be in charge of their own, getting a hold of their own concessions, handling their own money, but that will also act as a fundraiser for them, along with any profits that we raise. Come play bingo, it's only gonna cost you $10. And we're gonna have 6 regular games that give out $40 to $50 each, along with 2 games that are called 50-50 specials. So the more of those we sell, the higher the payout. I talked to Troy and the community center. With the tables that you currently have, we can comfortably seat about 80 people, which would be fantastic if we could get that many there. If you have any questions, please ask me, but I'm really excited about this. It's been about a year in the works, and it's finally here, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? I'd entertain a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the community center use agreement with the Lions Club as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. That's another big item off the list.
Yes.
It's exciting.
Troy, just to dovetail in on the, community center real quick, we do need to get, if it's possible, get a couple more tables in there.
Yeah, I was talking to David, I'd like to replace those 10-foot tables, they're pretty beat up. Ideally, I'd like to have some new 10-foot tables and some round tables. Folding chairs are fine for basic rentals. I'd eventually like to get some white folding chairs on more special events. I need more room. So yes, I'm gonna bring that to the board later this year.
I bring it up because at the Christmas festival, there was people that didn't have anywhere to sit. We did have more room when we had the tables and chairs to do it.
Yeah, and I think for like the Christmas party and some other events, if someone rents it for a wedding rehearsal or a reception, the round tables that you can put cloths on with white chairs would be much more attractive, and I think that would go well with more rentals.
Yeah, certainly.
So that's coming up.
Cool, thank you.
All right, moving on, ballot questions discussion, Mr. Greenwood.
Like Mary said, we have an election coming up. So we talked about some ballot questions the last couple of months. So far, and correct me if I'm wrong, the consensus is we're looking at doing a ballot question on allowing medical marijuana in the town of Platteville dispensaries. Second one on retail or recreational marijuana. At some point, if those are approved, the board adopts that. The board have to establish how many of each and what zoning locations, but we're not there yet. And then thirdly, if there's additional sales tax imposed on both types of marijuana. So to finish this up, because we're coming to crunch time where Kendra needs to work with Mary on drafting those ballot questions. Number one is am I correct, and I have another question following this, is that the consensus of the board that those three questions are still ballot questions that we should impose on the upcoming ballot for the election? Just a consensus.
What was the third one again? That's
The additional sales tax. And
part of that related to the marijuana questions.
No, it's on marijuana.
It can't be together, right? Can you explain that for, we can't have this, just, the sales tax can't just be incumbent upon approval of the dispensaries.
It can be, because obviously if you don't, so.
We have to have three questions.
Yes, you have to have 3 questions. Let me back this a little bit. The Tabor question, which is the sales tax question, has to be worded in a very specific manner and you can't change it. But all that is authorization. So even if for some strange reason the tax question passed, but the other two didn't, so you didn't have any marijuana businesses, there's nothing to tax, but you still have the authorization. So that way if you went back in 2 years or in November or some other time and asked the voters again, you already have the authorization that you need for taxing. So yes, it has to be 3 questions. I suppose you could somehow combine retail and medical into one question, but I don't think that's what you want to do. But the tax question must be separate.
It was my understanding, or correct me if I'm wrong, that the consensus of the board was to have a separate question about increasing the town's sales tax that had nothing to do with marijuana at all.
That's the fourth question I'm about to bring up.
Sorry, I was just talking about the marijuana.
Okay.
That was the fourth and last question I'll bring up, but this is still just on marijuana. Does the board want a question to impose, and then you have to decide how much? And I did a little bit of polling. Lions down the road at 66, they do a 5%. Silt over on the I-70, they do 0% additional sales tax. It's all over the board. So
5 is about, I would say, it's pretty average.
And just my point of view, if this is, you know, from the inception of this conversation about bringing more retail revenue into the town of Platteville, if that is the case, then why not impose a higher sales tax on marijuana sales than other retails, if that is truly the case?
Yeah, I agree.
So that's just my point of view, take it or leave it. But I'm going to ask the board about this fourth question here in just a moment.
And just to clarify, the 5% that you would impose is in addition to the 15% that the state will impose automatically.
So then like tobacco, which was 40% by the way, yeah, we have to collect that on our own.
Exactly, that's the other thing I wanted to point out. If this tax, first of all, again, if this question passes, the board still gets to decide, do we want to do it, do we not want to do it, what's it worth? It's only an authorization, but one of the things you need to consider is the cost of collection, because this must be self-collected, unlike our other taxes that the state collects. But this, you could have time to research that if you wanted to, is what I'm saying. it wouldn't, we would.
What's- How intensive is that process? The tax collection?
It depends how many businesses you have. If you have one business, not that bad, because they already are remitting to the state, so they already keep their records pretty carefully, because they have to.
I was wondering how ominous that tax is, not incredibly. It's more
Not
work.
for, no, not for one.
One or two.
One or two would probably be fine. If somehow you got 10,
Yeah.
that would be a little onerous.
That would be
big.
disproportionate.
Or if, you know, if at some point in time, the town begins to do all of the sales tax, that's a different story,
That's a different
but that's not.
Well, that implies a
Today.
home rule
Yeah.
situation, doesn't it?
You know, the towns I talked to, like Lyons, for example, I believe it was them, the board approved one, because they only wanted one in town. Some communities feel comfortable just having one, and others maybe two, but otherwise, Garden City is an exception where they have multiple ones, or Log Lane Village. And just, every community's different. My concern is when the time comes is where the board wants to put this as far as zoning. Because a lot of places will put it in their industrial zone. And our industrial zone is full.
With the exception of the new expansion there on Business 85, where we're gonna put retail, right?
Well, the town bought that property, and it's currently zoned commercial.
It is right next to the
Oh, we could collect rent and sales.
I mentioned that
And
the
you
last
can,
meeting.
and you can limit to one or two if you want to. A number of communities do that, even long.
I would hate to do one, it's so monopolizing, you know what I mean? I at least wanna have two, so
Right.
you could have some sort of competition.
I think Longmont has 5, even in that big community.
Longmont
so
has 5.
I think they limit that, which is a pretty
Wow.
low limit for a community that size. I think, I may be right, it's either 4 or 5, I believe.
So that's why when I go to the industrial park in Brighton Boulevard, I saw a couple of marijuana places, I thought, why are they over here?
Sometimes they do commercial and sometimes they do industrial. It also depends if you want to allow processing of any sort, then that is always industrial. But if you just want to allow the retail portion of it, I say retail, the sales portion, whether it be medical or retail, then it's usually, it can often be in commercial zones, it depends what you're looking for.
Some communities don't mind it being on the Main Street, others don't want it on the Main Street, they want it kind of,
It would probably look better than some of the things we have on our main street, but
I understand.
I'm not pushing for that at all.
You can also just, so you know, you can impose stricter requirements for, for lots of things to make it look a little better, if that's what you're concerned about.
And that's one thing, if this all goes through, we get to that point, I'm definitely coming board about zoning restrictions on colors, signage, so on and so forth. Bright green neon signs flashing in Platteville is not probably gonna go very well. But, speaking for myself and everybody in my neighborhood, but that's coming down the road.
So you need approval on those 3 questions, and you need a number for the third
So
question.
the main thing is what number, if the board wants to do an additional sales tax on the 2 types of marijuana, what percent are you looking or comfortable with?
5%.
Candace, in most places, I'm about
They're around between,
Seems like a reasonable.
yeah, Denver's at 5.5, I think, Boulder's at 5.5.
And they constantly get raised, so we can revisit it if we want to get
Right.
more.
You can also, just something you can do is you can also give yourself authorization in this question, if you want to start at 5, but have the ability to raise to 10. That's what Denver and Boulder have done.
Because if you were to start at 5 and you were to raise it at 6, you'd have to go back.
You'd have to go back to the
Yeah,
voters.
every time.
If we
Oh.
wanted it to read like that, it would say 5 during, and, with authorization by ordinance to
Up
increase
to
it.
10?
Up to 10. Some places say up to 10, no more than 1% per year. There's a lot
I'd
of.
be in favor of wording like that.
I like that.
Okay. And then what will happen is then we need to, the other blank in this question is this is the one that's always impossible to fill in, the first blank, because we have to estimate what our tax would be during the first fiscal year, which is impossible because we don't know how many businesses there are going to be. So we want to pick a number that's high enough that we don't go over, but low enough that we don't scare voters.
Let's make a deal, huh?
It's a guess. But you
So
never
if you-
want to go over because
So
if
if
you
you
go,
said between 5,000 and 100,000.
you have to give one number.
Oh, one number that's over the estimate.
Right, so I'll work with Mary, I'm not asking you all to do that, I'm just giving you a heads up that when I bring this back to you, there's gonna be a number in there, and we'll do a little research, we'll talk to other communities with 1 to 2 businesses, see what the revenue is, and we'll pick a number.
And it's all over the place.
Sure.
Yeah,
It is.
Hard to know.
it's impossible,
Because if it's under, then we have to issue refunds.
exactly, so we don't want it to be under, you want it to be high enough that we're pretty sure we're not gonna get that much, but again, you don't want it to be so high that the voters say, what are you talking about, you're gonna get $1 million in a marijuana tax? So, you know, that's the fine line that you have.
Sewer somehow.
You're right.
Can the word potentially go into the question?
No. That's the problem with
No.
Tabor.
That's
It has to
right.
read just like this, and it doesn't make a lot of sense the way
I
it's
know.
worded, but this
It
is
doesn't.
the way we have to do it.
Can the tax be increased by?
By blank annually in the first fiscal year. None of that language works together, but it was drafted that way in the Constitution.
That's correct. And then the fourth question, Mr. Rankin?
The fourth question is just flat sales tax. In my board report, I gave examples of most communities in Will County. This was also a previous part of the previous conversations. Platteville currently has 3% sales tax, and there was some thought of maybe increasing that for a specific purpose, not just the general fund, but doing a 0.5 to 1% increase for a economic development fund that would include. Economic development could be a broad term, and I want to help define that as just an example, where it could be, providing grants, incentivizing businesses to redo their stucco, to building a trail to the river, to matching grant for a GOCO grant. I mean, economic development, as Cheryl Trent, our consultant, said, is pretty broad spectrum of the definition. It could be any economic improvement for your community. That can mean almost anything about anything. So I wanted to bring that back to the table tonight. The more I thought about it, I'm looking at what other communities have. The lowest is Meade at 2%. Greeley and Fort Lupton is 4.11, 4%. One's is 3.95. Curtis is 3.6. So it ranges from 4.11 down to 2. 2's the exception to Meade. I'm not sure why the 2.
They've tried to increase it the last 2 elections, and they were.
But I think if you increase it toward the general sales tax and the property tax, it goes toward the operation of the general fund, and then we use the additional tax for specialized projects that the community would agree to. I think that'd be probably more of a success possibility in an election than just saying the town wants more revenue.
How do we advertise this to explain this is the purpose of it? That I guess that's the.
And do we have time to do that?
We do, I mean, yes and no.
That was the original
I mean,
concern at the last meeting, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
the last time we did such a question is when we did the 1% increase, because back in '09, I had 2%. And my first year's manager asked the board to increase it to 3% to establish a capital improvement fund, so similar to this. And we had a couple of public meetings with the board at the community center, not to promote for or against, but to provide what the money would go to be informative. I mean, there's rules we have to follow on that. So as a board member, you couldn't go around and say, vote for this. You would say, if approved, the money would go toward blah, 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 blah. So it's more of an educational component instead of a campaign component.
I think those first 2 bullet points you laid out would make more sense to me as far as what it would go for. We're trying to put it towards anything that, I looked over that draft economic development thing, and that's really the biggest money out of our pocket that it's asking for. But I see the first bullet point is the facade grant program, starting out with businesses downtown, right? We talked about that for a couple of years now.
I'm putting the money back in the community. The capital improvement fund back from 10 years ago was primarily for streets and sidewalk improvements, primarily, but other stuff as well, the way it's worded. This would be more specified toward those non-infrastructure typically, but put money back in the community. Business improvement programs, grants, streetscaping down Main Street, new parks, new amenities, GOCO grants, trails. So that's kind of how I would word it. Then you wouldn't have to use your capital improvement fund, which we have to now, and that could solely be for infrastructure projects. So that's just a suggestion for the board, but.
As a point of reference, for the last 12 months sales tax total in the ballpark number was, help me out here, 300,000? I know it varies, and it's impossible to predict, but
2% goes still to the general fund, 1% goes capital improvement fund, of that 3%. And when I last looked at the budget, the general fund brought in over 800,000 in sales tax, and the capital improvement fund was close to 4. So it's over $1 million.
oh, okay, so $1.2 million.
Yeah.
So
And that's the first time ever it's got that.
understood, and it's a varying number that's impossible to predict, but given that, though, if that number stayed the same, and you increased it by 1/3, by going from 3% to 4%, you're looking at another $400,000.
In this economic climate.
Right. All things remaining the same. I just wanted to put a number to it.
When I first started as manager, sales tax on average was around 25,000 to 30,000 a month. Now it's been averaging about 20,000. Which is a lot of that, I'll be blunt, is oil and gas dependent. So, not all, but we've had some new businesses since I started. The Dollar General, the Platteville Commons, I mean, those are big hits. So.
Yeah, I mean, I just want the board to have a number to grasp. Given it's unpredictable, it's likely to not be the same number from one year to the next. If it were the same this year as next, as last year, it's an additional 400,000.
If you went up to 1%,
Right.
I kind of was, based on the numbers you were thinking, was thinking 0.5%, sounded more
I
accurate.
threw out half, and I threw out 1, I know. It's just one of those things where you don't want to take the sales tax question to your community very many times.
Right.
So, make it even, I mean, like, my examples are all over the board. I mean, Greeley's 4.11, I'm not sure what the 0.11 is all about. One community's 3.6, so it just depends on, I don't know what those funds go to. I didn't do that much research on it.
Where's your head at with it? What do you think? If we're gonna do it, it's gonna be 1% then?
I'd say 1% because if it really goes, which it should, go to back into the business community, back into our parks and trails, to things that we keep the money in the capital improvement fund for what it's meant to be, and people actually start seeing new street lights, new curb and gutter.
We can do a lot of stuff with that money.
You could. You could.
Absolutely.
But I've gone back and forth, but I'm kind of in agreement with, the commission 1%, I'm more in agreement with 1%, make it 4%. And then the same thing with the marijuana sales tax, Kenner would have to work on a number to fill in. So it may be 400,000, worst case scenario, but you just don't know.
The zero, nobody passes it. So.
You have to put a number in those shells.
Right, but I think if 0.5% is where I would stay on this, on the sales tax. That keeps us consistent, some of these that are 4% are big communities except Gilchrist, because they have one gas station and one grocery store there, so they don't have any other revenue, but, I think 0.5% is reasonable. I think we get more buy-in on 0.5% than we would a full percent in this community.
If we did 4, we'd be similar to Gilchrist, Hudson, and Fort Lupton, 3.5, LaSalle, Kersey's 3.6, Erie's 3.5, Firestone's 3.6, Evans 3.5. So we're right in the middle. I mean, people can't say I can't shop here, it's more expensive because legal fruit. And seriously, wherever you go. Plus some of those communities, like my wife wants to go to Centerra and Loveland, I don't want to because they have tips on top of their sales tax. You're paying like 20% sales tax or tax. So we don't have that.
I tend to agree with Mr. Blum on the likelihood of passage is probably higher at 0.5%, that's why I initially said that, but.
I mean, even at 0.5%, if we, at our current economic, numbers that we have, would still be beneficial and would show that it's going to, it would benefit the economic plans that we have going forward. So, I just, you know, with everybody's water, sewer rates going up and, you know, they passed the mill levies on the fire department and all that other stuff, and then here's another one, we're coming to them to, here, we raised you on this stuff, so let's raise you again on this stuff, and, I'm just afraid that it'll scare them away.
That's true, the sales tax is looked at a little bit differently.
I understand that, because it's, you know, you go purchase things at the stores here, and then that's the tax, but,
Yeah.
you know, people, the public's the tax is the tax is the tax.
Yeah,
So.
I hear you.
Well, there's things you can't put on a ballot question that I think, I have the town attorney correct me if I'm wrong, that could be part of a conversation. Going back to budget, Spencer, you brought it. Why could not the town absorb the trash fees or the street light fee or do abolish the sidewalk maintenance fee, which I'm not recommending. But with the additional taxes, some communities don't charge for streetlights. Some communities have lesser garbage fees. I mean, those could be conversation points, but you can't put down a ballot question. I mean, it's more of a sales pitch.
Yeah, so it's the education to the community of what that's gonna be for, and that's
Yeah,
the big thing.
This is not going to go to offset streetlights, it's gonna do other things, but it's a trickle-down effect, because you're not using general fund money coming through the money to do these projects.
We're building the economy.
Exactly. So, that's why I started leaning more toward the 1%, because it impacts the entire budget in reality. It frees up a lot of money that you could essentially put back in the community by waiving some of those fees or reducing them. I'm just saying, without losing the budget.
I'm taken by the argument that you don't wanna bring the 0.5% this year and another 0.5% 2 years from now. Go for the 1%. And as a side note, it's my feeling anyhow, can't quantify this, but a good portion of the sales tax collected in town is from non-residents that are doing business on 85 as they come and go.
And 66.
And 66, yeah. Hard to quantify, impossible probably. But there's a certain percentage of sales tax revenue currently and in the future that's gonna be paid by non-residents, which, yeah, it's hard to sell that. I mean, it's hard to quantify it for sure, but it's a reality.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people shop at Dollar General and get gas and stuff in town and the liquor store and.
Yeah, on their way to somewhere else.
You know, I'm sure a lot of people buy locally and do that kind of stuff with these. But yeah, everybody shops outside, but that, you know, locally too. I think people do both, and I agree, but I think, you know, we just can't count on that. Majority of this is paid from how people traveling through.
No, just the awareness that a healthy percentage, I would venture, is from non-residents. I mean, certainly, we all spend money in town and would be paying the additional sales tax. But I'm more swayed by the idea of just going to the full 1% at the beginning. And then
If it doesn't pass, then what do we do? Go back to the community and go 0.5% next year? I mean,
Well, it's certainly not.
We're greedy.
Well, I think if you present the argument in the way it's been discussed tonight, that the money is, instead of being spent out of the general fund, it's going to economic development, those types of projects, that people can see the wisdom in that, and that it's like compound interest in a
I
sense.
understand that, but you have to, you know, a lot of people do look at it as a tax, so
Well, people who see it as additional tax are gonna vote against it regardless of how much it is.
That's true.
You know, and you're always gonna have that. You know, there's some people that aren't gonna vote for another nickel of sales tax if they were gonna, told them you're gonna pay the street with gold. They still wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
So, not to interrupt, but one thing I just need to know for drafting the ballot question, if this is what you wanna do, is sort of, you can say for general governmental purposes, you can also say for economic development and general governmental purposes. I'm just saying, if you wanna, I'm using that as an example, but if you wanna focus on something particular, you can still keep it for general governmental purposes, but sometimes communities like to add a more specific reason beforehand, because it kinda gets, I'm just throwing that out there,
And if I
so.
recall, that's how we worded it 10 years ago with the capital improvement fund. And it was defined, the ordinance was defined broad enough where it just, if something was at $5,000 in value that had a 3-year shelf life, it was a capital item, money could be spent on something like that. So it was broad enough, but still, it wasn't to pay salaries or do maintenance and all the other general fund obligations. You can't use that money for that. So.
So I would just suggest sometimes it makes voters a little more comfortable if you give them a specific reason, but you also have the general, so that you can fall back on that, but sometimes it's helpful, so.
I like that.
Madam Mayor, you have the heartbeat of the town better than anyone in this room. What do you think would be most likely to pass?
I think, I don't know, I'm conflicted with this one. I feel like 1%, as long as we're specific with where the money's going, I think has a chance. And people understand that it's, sales tax outside, people who work in our big buildings over here, and I think there's a good chance that it'll pass. But I'm afraid that all people are gonna see is 1%. They're gonna see shall taxes be increased by $400,000, and they'll quit reading and they'll check no. That's what I'm afraid of. And Troy's right with the school board and fire and everything else that's been brought forward. I don't think people wanna give the government any more money right now.
Timing is, when we talked about the very inception of this conversation.
There's a lot of really mad people in this community because of governments above us. So, I don't know. I tend to kind of lean, if we're gonna ask a question, we ask for 1%. Because anybody who reads it, if they're gonna vote for it, they're gonna read it all the way, and if they're not, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 or half.
Right, and with that new 7-Eleven coming in too, we're gonna get a lot of non-resident business too coming in.
And then Laredo Taco.
And what I try to do is just sit back and say, when I'm at the election, that first Tuesday of April, I'm reading this ballot, the questions. I've got mayor, trustee, and I've got sales tax marijuana, or marijuana sales tax, and then the other sales tax. How does that, just trying to be devil's advocate, what am I gonna be thinking as a citizen of Platteville?
Yeah.
I'm not saying pros or cons, but that's just, it's reality. Is it too much, is it not enough?
Is that the way they have to,
Mail ballot,
is that
sometimes
the
mail
order
ballots.
they have to appear on the ballot?
What's that?
Is that the order in which they have to appear on the ballot?
Actually, yes.
I would say the mayor, the trustees would be first,
Oh, yeah.
and then.
Right, but the questions in regards to
It'll
marijuana and
go-
sales tax.
It's required that it go the candidate, mayor, and trustees first, then Tabor. So so the marijuana sales tax question is going to be before the marijuana question, but there's nothing we can do about that. So, just that they tell you exactly what order it needs to be in.
Well, we can just throw it out there and see what happens. We're paying for the big ballot, might as well just do it.
So,
Right.
do we get to enter pros and cons in a blue book? How?
Yes, so
Okay.
there will be an opportunity for pro and con statements, and there'll be a Tabor notice mailed out. And it'll include all the pro and con statements that are received, or comments, I should say, that you receive, that the clerk receives, pro or con.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's opportunity for that. As a board, the only thing you can do is pass a resolution in favor of these things.
Right, and then after is it we vote on the wording? Do we vote on the wording?
Yes,
And we
so-
can't discuss how we personally feel about this?
So you'll vote on the wording hopefully at your next meeting, because that's probably, I mean, we might be able to push it to the first meeting in February, but I wouldn't suggest it. So I will bring you back a resolution with all of these written up. We'll finalize it at that meeting. Then, once that happens, the board and the town can't spend money on promoting it. Individually, you can do whatever you like. So you can talk about whatever your personal opinions are. I would say, not at a meeting, not at a board meeting, but outside, walking around, that's all fine. And then the board can pass one resolution in favor of any of those ballot questions. But that's all we can do under the Fair Campaign Practices Act.
Okay, so we can't, purchase a billboard saying vote for this, or don't.
You
vote.
can individually.
I'm just kidding.
Any of you can individually, but the town cannot.
There wouldn't be any social media restriction, and obviously it's personal speech.
Personal,
Protected,
none,
right?
none, exactly. Yep. There's no restrictions on personal speech at all.
Just make sure it's titled as
These are my
Spencer
personal
Radden,
beliefs.
resident of Platteville,
Yes.
not trustee of Platteville.
Right, yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
We don't wanna we don't wanna intermingle those two. Make it seem nice.
So, Nick, Harold, Pope, what are your feelings on the 0.5%, 1%?
I think we should go 1%.
One.
Yeah, but I don't think it'll make much of a difference, so like I said, you want the tax, you want the tax, half of one.
You gotta sell it. I mean, cause you feel like half of you guys don't even really wanna do this, so.
No, I don't wanna raise any more taxes on the citizens, I think we've gouged them enough.
I don't wanna raise taxes, I don't want marijuana in town, I don't want any of that, I think, but the citizens want stuff that we can't pay for. I don't know what else to do.
Well, that's my line. The demand for services from the taxpayers is there. A wide variety of suggestions, I want list, which is fine. I'd be more than happy to give them everything they like, except they gotta show me how I'm gonna pay for it. You know, if you want a swimming pool, is gonna cost $3 million and a full-time lifeguards and so on and so forth. That's wonderful. Swimming pools are great. Show me the money. Where am I gonna get $3 million to build a swimming pool?
So we're getting kind of in the weeds, but, so those 4 questions, 1%.
And do we wanna say for general government purposes for the 1%, or do you wanna be more specific?
I would like to be specific with economic development personally. I don't want to appear that we're trying to trick our residents at all.
General government purposes just makes it sound like we're just gonna put it towards our pocketbook, whatever we
I
want to
think
spend it
economic
on.
development, parks.
And the economic development, the two combined.
So economic development and parks and recreation or something like that, or?
I think, we're talking
Downtown
that
improvements.
all goes under, I think,
Yeah,
economic
downtown.
development can be, broad.
Yeah, when I researched the term of economic development, it's pretty broad.
It is very broad.
It is very broad.
It is very
It
good, but it
doesn't-
can't be used for,
Can't be.
current employee salaries who have nothing to do with economic development, couldn't be used for the police department, couldn't be used for, so there are some restrictions.
I'm just trying to think, what do people want?
Downtown improvements, because people want
They
downtown.
want
downtown
They want a
improvements.
busy Main Street.
Want economic development, and they want the river trail, they want a recreation center. I mean,
That's-
those are
I agree.
those are the top 2-3 things that we're looking to do, right?
So we could say economic development, downtown improvements and recreational amenities.
That's perfect.
Yeah, love it.
Cause I had, my sons and they boys came over and he said, if we could just have a small gym next to the community center in the wintertime, we can play basketball every night. That'd suit me fine. I mean, there's options out there which are more affordable than a rec center, We're just not.
No.
A rec center doesn't have to go in a rec district, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but yeah, recreational
Recreational amenities could include
use
the trail.
buzzwords that people really want in the town.
Right, that can include a trail or a rec center or parks or any of that is all considered a recreational amenity.
I mean, prime example right now is we budgeted $390,000 in capital improvement fund, another $35,000 in use tax, another $45,000 in the conservation trust fund for the GO program. That can come out of this fund instead. that money could go toward other projects.
Beautiful, that's good to me.
Okay, so I'll bring back a resolution, I'll have all four ballot questions, and then if we need to monkey around with the wording, we can, on that night, but.
So most likely next week then.
Yes, like I said, we'll work with Mary to get the numbers. You don't get everything. Okay.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. Kendra, did you have anything?
I don't have much to report, it was the holidays, so
Yes.
I guess maybe that's a good thing, but I don't have anything to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Mrs. Cleveland? All right, thank you so much, Kendra. Moving on to Mr. Rankin.
Thank you. Outline a number of other things in my board report. I eat the budget books next meeting. David Green comes in tomorrow, closes out the year, so I'm waiting on some numbers for the capital improvement plan. Volcano mitigation plan and looking at the CDOT bus.
That mitigation plan, I messaged Denise again with all of your contact information. I'm assuming you guys are in front of.
Yep. So I'll work with, and that's a year-long process. It's a FEMA requirement. We don't get any federal money if we need it, so it's not that really, at the end of the day, it's not that big a deal. One thing I do want to bring up, that came up recently, last month during the Upper Front Range quarterly meeting, CDOT announced a one-time funding option called the Multimodal Options Fund. This came out of Senate Bill 2018-01. And there's about $1.5 million available in the Upper Front Range, which Platteville is part of. We're part of basically Larimer, Weld, and Morgan County communities are mostly in the Upper Front Range. The North Front Range also includes Evans, Greeley, Windsor, and that area, Fort Collins, so they're kind of split off. But this is a one-time, and I'm just kind of quoting, infusion of dollars into the state. The funding expires June 30th, 2023, so we have a few years. It's a 50-50 match reimbursement. So you have to have the money in the bank, pay it, just like DOLA and GOCO. You got to pay it up and then get reimbursed. The thing is Platteville is one of the few communities that can qualify to be exempt from any match whatsoever, based upon two criteria. We have a population under 20,000, and unfortunately we have a poverty rate of over 12%. So that allows us, for me to send a letter to CDOT saying I'd like to be exempt from any match requirements. I had a 2-hour training today with Karen Schneider with CDOT with these other communities this afternoon talking about this program. Again, it's a one-time deal. Primary projects for transit infrastructure, and bike and pedestrian infrastructure projects. It has to meet these 5 goals. It has to benefit seniors by making aging in place more feasible, benefit residents of rural area by providing them with flexible public transportation services or options, provides enhanced mobility for persons with disabilities, provides safe routes to schools for children, and increases access to and/or usage of transit or multi-use facilities. You don't meet one or multiple ones of these 5, you have to meet all 5, which was a big debate this afternoon to see that. Because how does safe routes to school and seniors aging in place coincide? So it limits, to my idea, was sidewalks. Pay for the sidewalk along Reynolds, and then if the money's there, which I'm going to ask the board for me to apply for, build the sidewalk from Reynolds all the way to the sidewalk connection to Division and Goodrich. That way you have a connection from the schools all the way to the community center. And then and the sidewalk.
Is this a $1.5 million pool for all of these communities? So it's not, Platteville just gets a small drop in that?
I'm looking at probably a $400,000 request. I think based upon the other sidewalks we built and Steve Gutierrez's estimate for the sidewalk on Reynolds Avenue, which I need to pull back up, that would probably pay for most of that entire project. And I know Estes Park is applying.
So you can give us a third of the money, Trent?
All Karen Steiner says is don't ask for more than what's funded.
You can ask for 400,000 and they might give you 12.
Yeah.
And what they'll typically do is Commissioner Kirkmeyer at that meeting last month, brought this project up, gave a speech on equality of funding for the communities throughout Will County, and Limerick County, and Morgan County. One community asked to have all $1.5 million, which the 20 other communities, including myself in the room, laughed at. It's like, you can't do that. I think if we ask for 400, we might get 200. So, I always ask for more than you.
Yep.
400 would probably do the whole project. I'm thinking this would be a great way to not match it. They may say put some money into the skin of the game, but my impression, because of our position, unfortunately, or whether, you know, we're under 20,000, we're barely 3,000, and our poverty level's 12.67%, actually 13%. Estes Park actually has a poverty rate over 12%, so they'll qualify for no match as well.
They're under 20,000.
They're under 20,000.
Oh, really?
And for the first time, Windsor couldn't qualify. They're actually over 32,000 now. A few years ago, they were under 20,000.
Wow.
Mary, what are you doing up there? I know.
All those subdivisions you're building out there.
So typically with these grants, I have to bring a resolution to the board because of short notice. They're gonna waive the resolution requirement. I do have to, by the 15th, which is next Wednesday, send an email to Commissioner Kirkmeyer that we're interested in provide a project and budget in general. Also have to send to CDOT and gain approval of a cost estimate and a project schedule timeline. One of the traffic engineers. And then the application has to be submitted by January 31st, so it's a very short window. What I'd like to do is draft a letter on behalf of the mayor and the board to bring back at the next meeting instead of a resolution. And I'm also gonna ask the school district if they partner with us as a non-financial partner, because it would be a safe route. And I also wanna get a letter from the senior organization and the rec director. And I think those have to take a bunch of pictures and on and on. So, good funding opportunity, but it's a one-time deal. I think we would compete pretty high in the process.
Fantastic.
Yep. So that's the main thing I wanted to discuss with the board, because that just came up recently. Did not schedule a study session for this month just because next Thursday we have another Economic Development Steering Committee meeting. I'm looking at, I'll talk about on the 21st about a study session next month in February to discuss water supply plan and water portfolio, basically. But otherwise, that's all I have for tonight for the board.
Any update on the 7-Eleven, Troy?
Yes, Melissa was in today. She's been working on the plan review. The primary person for the Hunter Development Group was the one we're working with that's promoting this for 7-Eleven, and a bunch of, they represent a bunch of chain stores basically. Contacted me last week, actually before Christmas, verified their impact fees, their system investment fees, water dedication requirements. They're going to bring in another 3 shares of water. But right now it's still a go. I mean, I haven't confirmed that they bought the properties yet. Maybe they did or didn't, I don't know. But they've invested a lot into this already. So I'm optimistic that it'll go.
Yeah, the car lot, you know, was empty, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's coming, and then there's cars there again, so.
Well, and I spoke with Randy, and he, you know, he's not gonna just sell his hands, he's gonna make money while he can, obviously. And then, David and Steve Bethers, Melissa have a conference call with their traffic engineer Thursday morning. Because some of the traffic pattern right there at Grand, right across the street, we want them, except for fueling tankers, restrict semi-trucks, because it's just a nightmare. And they're willing to do that. They want to service local transits down the highway, commuter cars, pickup trucks, small trucks, and their own gas companies. They really want to service the 500 trucks in the energy park every day. So. But yeah, it's very optimistic.
Do you have any kind of a timeline, like an idea?
They're pushing pretty hard. I think they want to break ground in the spring and have it done by 2020. If not the fall. I mean, it's pretty aggressive. I can't speak for them, but that's the impression I get. So.
Have you done anything about that gray dogs? Have you got hold of somebody that.
All the properties have been notified, most of them are willing participants, so, maybe the board doesn't all know this, but our code official has resigned for personal reasons. But, I will tackle that code issue myself here in the next month, because we want to get some of those, abatements taken care of. I am gonna reach out to, Ken Baxter, the representative of Platte River Farms again, and see if we can pick up that conversation on that 50 acres down at Bella Vista. Otherwise, we don't have anything else right now other than what I reported.
Anything else, Ms. Rankin? I don't have anything at this time.
Thank you for
committees?
pursuing the, that modal plan, that's cool.
I like free money. It's not free, but it's money to us.
Committees, do you have anything to report?
Nothing with the youth committee, have a meeting, the first meeting this year on 28th, 6:30, so.
Parks, Trails and Trees Committee will meet next Tuesday at 6:30 in this room.
All right,
One question about the two committees. I'm putting together, like I said in February, a general community events calendar. And if the two committees have something coming up, you mentioned maybe a farmer's market or movie nights for the kids. If you, at your next meeting this month, if you could discuss that. And if you wanna do something like that, just give me a general date, cause I wanna promote that in the community. Like, you know, with the Lions Club, Easter egg hunt, the Rotary Car Show, Talk for Tuesday. Parade the Lights in December. I'd like to give the community kind of generalized list of events throughout the year. So if you
It'll
want
be
to
a yearly outlook or a monthly.
it'd be a year, you know, and I can update it as we go, but it'd be a snapshot of what Platteville has throughout the entire year. A lot of communities do that. Some will give little magnets to put in the refrigerator. It's pretty nice to have.
yeah. Okay, anything else? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
We haven't even said.